Hey there, Agile Adventurer. Just a quick question. What if, for the price of a fancy coffee or half a pizza, you could unlock over 700 hours of the best Agile content on the planet? That's audio, video, e-courses, books, presentations, all that you can think of. But you can also join live calls with world-class practitioners and hang out in a flame war-free and AI slop-clean Slack with the sharpest minds in the game. Oh, and yes, you get direct access to me, Vasco, your Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. No, this is not a drill. It's the Scrum Master Toolbox membership. And it's your unfair advantage in the Agile world. So if you want to know more, go check out scrummastertoolbox.org/membership. That's scrummastertoolbox.org/membership. And check out all the goodies we have for you. Do it now. But if you're not doing it now, let's listen to the podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special bonus episode. And this week, or in this bonus episode, I should say, joining us to talk about collaboration in software teams is Roman Nikolaev. Hey, Roman, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here, Vasco.
And it's a pleasure to have you. So Roman is head of technology at Cambri, and I'll put the link to his LinkedIn page as well as the company in the show notes. And he's sharing something with us today that maybe some of us don't want to hear. Your team probably collaborates too much. Roman makes the case that protecting individual focus time isn't anti-team. It's actually how you get teams to ship. So before you turn up, stay with us. There's some insights that we want to share. But first, Roman, tell us a little bit about your background. How did you end up as a head of technology at Cambri, and what made you start paying attention to how teams spend their time together?
Yeah, my background is in engineering. I have a relatively long career starting back to in the beginning of 2000s. So I kind of accidentally ended up in the management because I was a lead developer in one company where I worked, but I never managed people. It was the middle of COVID. I changed jobs. And at that point, I didn't want to lead anyone. I wanted to be just a senior engineer doing my stuff. But somehow, 4 months in the job, I was already leading a team. And then 1 year after, I was the head of technology at the company, so leading the whole technical organization. So I don't know what happened, but yeah, that's how I ended up in the management. And about communication, I think the most important differentiator nowadays for technical teams is not technical knowledge, it is communication and how smoothly people can work together. The communication tax is real, and the less we need to pay for communication, more we can concentrate and own things end to end is better.
So tell us a little bit more. When you talk about communication tax, what exactly do you mean?
I mean, if we talk about typical way of working, we have a lot of stakeholders within and outside technical teams. We have product management people, we have QA people, we have Scrum Masters, we have product owners, all kind of people. And then at some point, it might turn into this game of telephone. So when people who are really doing the work, they don't have all the necessary context and information for doing their job well, and we end up with things what nobody needs, like unnecessary features. We end up with things implemented in the wrong way. We end up with suboptimal technical solutions what don't scale. So I think that the less people we have involved, less handoffs we have, is more effective, and in the end we produce better products.
Yeah, so you talk about two different things there. So one is the amount of people involved, and there's something related to that you talk about when you talk about the collaboration tax. But then there's also the handoff. So let's first start with the amount of people, right? Because there are ways to have a lot of people collaborate without handoffs, and then there are ways of having very few people collaborating with lots of handoffs as well. So these are kind of important but orthogonal items. In the article, I mean, the link is in the show notes for those that want to read it. In the article you published on Substack, you talked about specifically team collaboration being seen as a good thing, and then you added, "I politely disagree." Of course, me being in the Agile world, that got my attention because that's unexpected. Why would someone be against collaboration? But what's behind that? What do you think that when you think about collaboration inside a team? Let's talk about a team as 5 plus minus 2 now, for the sake of argument. Then we can explore some specific cases. But if we think about a team of 5 plus minus 2, when does collaboration become a problem for a team?
Yeah, if we are talking about collaboration in general, I think there is a tendency also that collaboration happens not only inside the team, but also there are external stakeholders, and that leads us to the question of ownership, which is one of the key questions around collaboration. It is not always so that ownership of a product is inside the team. We might have even a product owner, we can have a Scrum Master or a developer playing a role of the Scrum Master on the team. But in the end, product decisions, for instance, or architecture decisions are not within the team. And we need to collaborate with these external stakeholders. I see this kind of situations as suboptimal. Ideally, the team should own the whole technical and product decision workflow end to end. This is like if we are talking about external stakeholders. If we are talking about the Scrum team, like 5 plus minus 2, as you said, Vasco. So here I would say that less handoffs we have inside the team is better. So if you look at typical software development life cycle, we have a ticket in a ticketing system created by a product owner, then it gets refined together with the team, then developer picks it up, then we have the development phase, then we have code review phase where some other developers from the team are involved. Then we have quality assurance phase. Then we have acceptance phase. So there are quite many handoffs. And if we can reduce some of these, so not so many people, not the whole team is involved, but we have minimal amount of people involved into each phase, and maybe we can cut some of the phases. We could get to much more effective workflow from both like time spent on it perspective and also from the quality of outcomes perspective.
Okay, because, so what I hear you say is we should be aware of the external impact. So like ownerships outside the team, having a lot of other teams or even stakeholders to coordinate with. That's one aspect. But you're also saying, if I get you right, that even inside a team of 5 plus minus 2, we can have a problem of having too many handoffs in the team. And you talked about an example. Can you walk us through that example? Yeah. Like, where have you seen that happen? Then in a small Scrum team, so they're supposed to have shared ownership of everything that they do, you still saw those handoffs anti-patterns.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about this particular post, what Vasco noticed. So what triggered this post was that we had a conversation inside our team. Someone said that we need to involve more developers in handling a particular ticket. If someone needs help, we need all to jump on the ticket and solve it together. I think it's a little bit backwards in the sense that, yes, we are committed to completing a sprint goal or iteration goal. This is fine, but wouldn't it be better, instead of involving more people, give people who work on this particular work item tools and necessary knowledge to complete this ticket independently without involving half of the team? Of course, there is one angle, what Juvaska mentioned, that we would like to share knowledge and collaborate and have the shared ownership. I think it's a valid concern. On the other hand, this sometimes might not require synchronous collaboration. We can use asynchronous communication tools such as RFCs, feature one-pagers, asynchronous code walkthroughs, and things like that to keep people aware of what's going on in the development process without synchronous involvement and deep dive into the code.
Yeah, I totally see that. And actually, async or asynchronous collaboration is something that has been coming up quite a lot since the COVID days, of course, because people were working separately and in their own homes, and they weren't collaborating face to face necessarily in real time. What are some of your experiences that you could share about what has worked for you and your teams in terms of enabling asynchronous collaboration in a way that allows for collaboration to be a positive for the team, rather than, as you also talk about in the post, rather than something that interrupts and distracts the team?
Yeah. One of the things what is actually very widely used in the team is RFC, request for comments document. So instead of gathering a meeting where people come unprepared or with some raw ideas, we have an ownership for a task. Someone takes their time, writes down their thoughts, options in a document. We use Confluence. And then after the document is completed, we assign people to review it. Other people can also join, not only one who are assigned the document, but we should have at least a couple of people who sign off on this. It turned out to be a very effective way to find better technical solutions, but also spread the knowledge of what's going on without being hands-on. Another thing what I actually really like is using weekly updates kind of thing. So, for instance, I write every Monday, I write what's going on in the business, in different teams across the whole technical organization. It takes me maybe 1.5, 2 hours to write very long posts containing all the project statuses, what happened last week, what will happen next week, business context. These updates got very positive reaction from the team when I run, for instance, skip level meetings. I always get people saying that these are very useful updates, and it also shows in how people operate. I have less questions about the business context, why we are doing this, for whom, what are priorities, compared to the times when we didn't have this kind of asynchronous context for the whole team.
Yeah, I really like that idea of creating specific techniques for context sharing, right? Because the idea that collaboration can become a problem is that it costs too much. You call it the collaboration tax, but basically it interrupts other work, it distracts, it removes focus from what matters, it creates questions more than it gives answers. Like all of those would be negative aspects. But when you talk about this, sharing the post every Monday about what's going on in all of the teams and what projects are going on, where they are, and so on, you're creating a shared understanding or shared context for everybody in the team. And as I understand it, and I want to hear your thoughts, as I understand it, the idea is that sharing of the context is there to allow us to go straight to what matters in terms of when we collaborate directly, the discussions we have, rather than have a lot of time spent in meetings where it's basically just status sharing. Is that what you're trying to do with that Monday internal newsletter, I guess we could call it?
Yeah, this is one side. So I see two sides of this. The first side is effectiveness. So having synchronous meeting with a lot of people is huge waste of time, interruption for people. We don't have the best ideas when we come to the meeting without any preparation. And the second side of this way of working is that people can make better decisions independently. We are a relatively small organization and everyone's effort shows on the end product. So it's super important that people understand what we are doing and why. We don't feed tickets to developers and treat them as, producers of code, but it's we are all creators of the product, and then we want to have everyone's opinion, everyone's best ideas incorporated into the product. Of course, technical people might have more technical perspective. UI designers might have more like a user-centric interaction perspective. But anyway, we are working together. And as we understand the domain area, as we understand what users want, and then we understand technical limitations, then we can create better products as well.
And that leads us to the next question, which is, we want to have this kind of tools like what you shared, like having this internal newsletter or what you call the RFC or request for comments process. But that means that what we are trying to aim for is something that you called in your article as little collaboration as they can get away with and still be effective. And that sounds like there's potentially a minimum viable amount of collaboration. But we need to be very practical here, and you have experience with this. So I want to ask, how do you get there? How do you find that minimum, Roman?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think it's very difficult to answer shortly and decisively for every team. But one heuristic would be that if one of the team members goes on vacation, the rest of the team can continue working on their task. So that means that people have enough context to know what's going on and to pick up from the place where it was left. On the other hand, we should look very critically at what meetings we have, how many people participate in certain activities at the same time, such as code reviews, how many people doing code reviews do we need, for instance. And we can start from cutting things down and then gradually adding them back, rather than just to be safe, having everyone participating in everything. So I would probably start from going to the minimum and think if we still don't satisfy this heuristic that Alice can go on vacation and Bob can continue from where Alice stopped, then we don't have enough collaboration.
I like that heuristic because it also points to other things than, and this is the key, I think, communication as the collaboration mechanism, right? Like when we talk about Bob being able to take over if Alice is away on vacation, then we're also talking about this constantly shared context, alignment. We are talking about properly documented changes to the code, potentially sharing knowledge between each other on a regular basis. And I think that heuristic can also become kind of a generative approach to managing the team, right? Like we could just, for example, every week ask every team member, how confident are you that if you pick up a random piece of code, you would be able to work on it, or a part of the product? It might not even be code, right? Like it could be like documentation or support or whatever, depending on how the team is set up. Is that how you've used it, kind of as a sanity check for how you work with your teams to make sure that they are at the right level of collaboration, or have you used also other heuristics for that?
Maybe not answer directly to your question, Vasco, but maybe just a small story. So I wrote about this on my newsletter a few months ago. But what partially triggered my thinking about how effective is our collaboration was an incident when I went on vacation, as it's typical in Finland, for 1 month. Before I went on vacation, I explained to my team how I need to continue with the task what I was doing at the moment, and I expected that the team fully understood what I'm telling them, what is the architecture and what is the intent there. I left, had a great time, returned back, and what I discovered, what team implemented completely wrong thing. And we wasted 1 month from the 2-month project. So we have only 1 month left before the deadline. So it resulted in me working weekends and me working on the planes, on the trains, just to meet the deadline. It was a hard lesson, but what I learned from it was that we don't need maybe more collaboration or synchronous communication. We need better communication, and that led me to considering how do we actually handle context, shared context, and how do we keep the team aligned.
So let's explore that for the Scrum Masters and Agile coaches and team leads and tech leads listening to us today. Of course, the key question is, okay, but how do I get started? How do I help my team find that minimum viable level of collaboration? So what are some of the tips you can share with us about getting there, right? Like wherever we are, maybe we are, in meetings half the day, and maybe we have a lot of meetings that we need to attend with external stakeholders. I don't know where everyone is. Everybody's in a different place. But where would you start looking at how the team works and maybe processes, maybe tips, maybe just techniques? Where would you start to try to find that minimum viable level of collaboration?
I think it's very important to have clear ownership over the task. So I would probably first look into if a particular initiative, a feature, or some kind of process has owner and well-defined roles. Who is doing what? Usually, if there is no clear owner, that leads to a lot of synchronous meetings where all the stakeholders need to be involved. Everyone sits for 1 hour meeting. Some tasks get assigned, but there is no clear process, ownership and responsibility. And then we need to have another meeting to status update or follow up. So the first thing I would do for every process, I would ensure that there is a clear ownership and roles. The second thing, I would look at the team calendar and check, starting from the biggest meetings, can they be an RFC? Can they be a message? Can they be an email? And I would start maybe experimenting a little bit. What happens if we cancel this meeting and replace it with a message on Slack? We can always put it back if this doesn't work. I think in Agile world, the experimentation is one of the key things. So we should embrace it and not be afraid of maybe challenging some dogmas and the things we have always been doing this or that way. Try to rethink everything from the scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like how you phrase that. In an agile world, we should be accepting experimentation is part of how we get better. And a meeting that suddenly disappears from the calendar will not necessarily be missed by most people. Some probably will, but then you get feedback, you get information about why that meeting matters for that person. And that in itself is already a positive insight that you can turn into something actionable, something that will help your team improve how they function. All right, we're getting close to the end, Roman, but it's clear that you've been thinking and practicing these ideas for a while. Is there a book or a resource? We'll put the link to your newsletter, the Substack newsletter, in the show notes. Make sure that people find it. But is there like a presentation, a video, a book that you would recommend for our listeners that want to go deeper into understanding how collaboration can be made positively impactful rather than a burden for the team?
Yeah, we talked here on the podcast a lot about ownership and having the decision-making power inside the team. I think one of the books what I could recommend on this subject is Team Topologies. It talks a lot about value stream aligned teams what own customer problem end to end. For me, when I read this book, it was a very clear definition and clear mental model of independent team what operates effectively and owns the area. So I would really recommend to read this book if your audience haven't read it already. So
absolutely. And we'll put the link to an episode with the Team Topologies authors, the book authors, who have been also on the show. Definitely a great recommendation. And how about you, Roman? Where can people go if they want to know more about you and the work that you're doing?
I'm very happy to chat with fellow practitioners. So you can find me on my LinkedIn, or you can go and check out my newsletter, High Impact Engineering at substack.substack.com. Yeah, connect with me there. Drop me a message. I'm always happy to chat and talk about collaboration.
Absolutely. And we'll put the link to those in the show notes. Make sure that people can go and get in touch and ask a few follow-up questions. After all, that's how we learn as a community. Roman, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I hope you liked this episode. But before you hit next episode, here's the deal. This podcast is powered by people like you. The members who wanted more than just inspiration. They wanted real tools and real connection to people who are practicing Agile every day. We're talking access to over 700 hours of Agile Gold, CTO level strategy talks, summit keynotes, live workshops, e-courses, deep dive interviews, books, and if you're into no estimates, we got the pioneers of no estimates in those deep dive interviews as well. Agile business intelligence, creating product visions, coaching your product owner courses, you name it. You'll get invites to monthly live Q&As with Agile pioneers and practitioners, plus a private Slack community, which is free of all of that AI slop you see everywhere, and of course, without the flame wars. It's a community of practitioners that want to learn and thrive together. It's the best place to connect with community and learn together. So if this podcast has helped you before, imagine what you will get from this podcast membership. So head on over to scrummastertoolbox.org/membership and join the community that's shaping the future of Agile. And we have so much for you. So check out all the details at scrummastertoolbox.org/membership, because listening is great, it's important, but doing it together, that's next level. I'll see you in the community Slack.
We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.